We're back on the record after the mid-morning break. This is CR 22-21-1624, State of Idaho versus Lori Noreen Vallow. The state has called its next witness, who has been sworn and is on the stand. Ms. Smith, if you'd like to commence with your direct examination, you may.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you introduce yourself to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, please?
David Dale Warwick,
Okay. Mr. Warwick, where do you live?
Pleasant Grove, Utah.
Okay. Are you married?
Yes.
Who are you married to?
Melanie Gibb.
Okay. How long have you been married to Melanie Gibb?
About 2.25 years.
Okay. So if I'm doing the math, what year was that? 2021?
Yeah, 2021.
Okay. And do you know Lori Vallow?
Yes.
How do you know Lori Vallow?
I met her through Melanie.
Okay. Do you remember when you first met her?
Yes.
When did you first meet her?
It was down in Arizona. I was down there with Melanie, and we got a call. And she asked Melanie to bring me over. They wanted me to meet them.
Okay, so, and if at any time, I know sometimes it's hard for you to hear, right?
Yeah.
So if at any time you can't hear, I need you to let me know, all right?
Okay.
All right. So you said she wanted Melanie to bring you over to meet them. Who is she?
Lori Vallow.
Okay. And Lori Vallow wanted to meet you.
Yes.
All right. And where did you go to meet her?
To her house.
Okay. Where was that?
I believe it was Chandler, Arizona.
Okay. Was it in Arizona?
Yes, it was in Arizona.
Okay. Was she married at the time?
No.
Okay. Was she widowed?
Yes.
Okay. Who had she been married to?
Charles Vallow.
Okay. How close in time was this to that you met her? Was it to the time that Charles died?
I met her the first week of August, and I just knew Charles had died previously to that, but I wasn't sure how.
Okay.
I didn't know them.
Okay. So the first week of August of 2019?
Yes.
Okay. And so when you met her, you went to her home in Arizona.
Yes.
Who was there at her home when you met her?
It was Chad, Alex, Melanie, I think her last name was Bordeaux at the time, and then Zalima showed up, and then another lady showed up, but I don't remember her name. She was pretty quiet.
And when you said Chad, do you mean Chad Daybell?
Yes.
Okay. So prior to August of 2019, had you ever met Chad Daybell?
Just over the phone.
Okay. How was it you talked to Chad Daybell over the phone prior to August of 2019?
A few years previous, he reached out to me and wanted to do a book with me.
And did you ever do that with him?
No.
Okay. Why not?
'Cause I didn't feel it was right, and I didn't feel like he was the one that, if it was to be done, that it should be done with.
Okay. And so at the house, at Lori Vallow's home in August of 2019, you saw Chad there.
Yes.
Okay. What happened at the house when you met Lori Vallow?
They were just sitting around the table, and Lori she was an amazing hostess. She was fixing food, and it was just they were like having a social.
Okay.
And,
all right. And then did you have an opportunity to meet her again at any point after that?
Yes.
Okay. Where was it you met her again?
At her apartment in Rexburg,
okay.
Idaho.
Now, to be clear at this point, were you married to Melanie Gibb?
No.
Okay. Were you guys dating at this point?
Yes.
Okay. So how did it come to be that you met Lori Vallow at her place in Rexburg, Idaho?
Melanie and Lori wanted to do a podcast with me, which was supposed to happen in Arizona, which it didn't happen. So I was coming up to see Melanie, and I was coming up for the Book of Mormon conference, and I was also coming up because my son just moved to Pocatello, Idaho.
Okay.
So I just kind of took a long weekend, just kind of see everybody and just enjoy the weekend and do the podcast.
Okay. And so when you say you took a long weekend, what weekend was that?
September 2020 through the 23rd, 22nd, right in there.
Okay. Of 2019?
Yes.
Okay. And so forgive me, you were coming up for kind of three purposes?
Yes.
And those three purposes were what?
To go spend some time with my son, with his family in Pocatello. They just moved there a couple weeks previous. And then the Book of Mormon conference was there in Rexburg. And then to see Melanie.
Okay.
And to do the podcast.
Okay. When you say to do the podcast, had you participated in any of the podcast sessions that Lori Vallow and Melanie and others had done before?
No, I did some with Preparing the People, but nobody else.
Okay. And so one of the purposes was to come up and to do the podcast with Melanie, Lori. Anybody else going to participate in that podcast?
No.
Okay. Where were you supposed to record the podcast?
At Lori's apartment.
Okay. And so you came up, I believe you said September 20th, and you were going to go to Lori's to do the podcast?
Yes.
All right. Where did you stay that weekend?
Well, I was going to stay in a hotel in Idaho Falls to kind of be in the middle with everything. But Melanie called me and said, hey, don't waste money on a hotel. Lori's got an extra room here. Why don't you just come and stay here?
Okay.
And the majority of the weekend is going to be in Rexburg anyway, so I decided to stay there.
Okay. So when you got to Lori's place in Rexburg, Idaho, who was at the house, if you remember?
When I got there, Alex Cox, Melanie, Lori, and JJ.
Okay. Now, had you met JJ Vallow before that time?
No.
Okay. Do you remember what JJ was doing when you got there?
He was sitting on the couch playing with toys.
Okay. And did you interact with him at all?
Yeah, I got a Down syndrome boy, autistic, so I just sat down with him to include him. I wanted to see how he was doing and talk to him, but it was like I wasn't even there. He never acknowledged me.
Okay. Now, when you got there, did you see Tylee Ryan there at all?
No.
Did you ever see Tylee Ryan that weekend?
No, I never did. Never did see her. I never did meet her.
Okay. Were you told where she was?
I was told that she was attending Rexburg, Idaho College, and she wanted to be independent.
Okay. And who told you that?
I think it was Melanie told. If I remember, Melanie asked Lori in front of me.
Okay. And then who told you that Tylee was attending college in Rexburg
Yeah.
and wanted to be independent?
Yes.
Who said those words?
Lori.
Okay. And so after you have that interaction with JJ, did you have any other interactions with JJ that weekend?
Yeah, there was he had a cardboard box and he was cutting doors and windows out of it, making a home out of it. So I got next to him again and just tried talking to him, but it was the same experience.
Okay.
He was very focused on that and didn't acknowledge me at all.
Okay. And did you ever see him engage with anyone?
I think he engaged with Alex once, and I can't remember what they were talking about, but it looked like a good relationship. Then he got to go outside and play with some children.
Okay.
And when he went outside, he just looked really happy.
Now, that weekend, did you see Chad Daybell at all?
Yes.
Okay. How many times did you see him, if you remember?
I would say 4 times,
Okay.
according to memory.
Okay. Can you tell us about any those interactions?
That's when he was trying to teach me about some of their beliefs. About the gathering of the 144,000 and then Satan having powers to push people out of their bodies and then the spirit being stuck. I don't know how far to go with this, but it was just, just some...
It's okay. I'll ask questions.
Okay.
That's fair. And that's exactly right. If you're not sure, we'll just do question, answer, okay?
Okay.
All right. Do you need some water or anything?
Yeah.
Okay. I saw you licking your lips. Now, you indicated that he started talking about beliefs and that, and the 144,000, right?
Yeah.
That's what you said. Who was present during this conversation?
Melanie and Lori.
Okay. Did Lori participate in the conversation at all about those issues?
Not that I can recall. He seemed to lead the way on that.
Okay. And did you, what was your response to Chad's, sort of concepts?
I just said, if the Lord's gathering is 144,000, I believe that would happen through his prophet. And then, far as the Satan having power to push people out of the bodies, I said, we're taught differently in that. That can't happen. He's not given that kind of power.
Okay. So let me stop you there. So you are a member of the Church of Latter-day Saints, right?
Yes.
Okay. And I heard you say through the prophet. Are those doctrines taught through the mainstream LDS Church?
Yes.
Okay. And so your response was things more in line with the teachings of your church?
Yes.
Okay. Were you sort of going along with what Chad was telling you?
I was listening, and then I questioned, and that's, I don't know what you mean by going along. I didn't.
Did you believe him?
No.
Okay. Did you let him know you didn't believe him?
Yeah.
Okay. So after that interaction, did you have any other interactions with Chad?
Yeah, he had us meet him at a property on the east side of a church.
When you say had us meet him, who was together with that situation?
Me and Melanie met with Chad and Lori at this property.
Okay. And it was next to a church?
Yes.
Okay. What happened when you met with Chad and Lori next to a church?
They just trying to tell us about that beautiful building, like a temple that was there, and that was in spirit. But, so they wanted to show it to us, but I couldn't see anything.
Okay. Why did they want to show you the temple or the heavenly building they said they were seeing?
I think it tied in with things that they believed in, but I didn't know all their beliefs. Did you believe it? Could you see a building? No, I didn't believe it was there, and I couldn't see it, but I was trying to be respectful and just kind of follow along, I guess.
Okay. And then after the visit of a site, what was supposed to happen at that site where you were meeting with Chad and Lori?
We were just supposed to be able to witness it. That's all I recall.
Okay. And then did you run into Chad Daybell again that weekend?
Yes.
Okay, where was that?
They had 80 acres that was out by his place. It was for sale. It was for development.
So why were you looking at 80 acres near Chad Daybell's property?
Well, for me personally, I had an investor down in Utah that wanted to do a development in Rexburg. So I was interested in it for that. And Chad was interested in it because he wanted me to move up to Rexburg.
Okay. And so what did you do about going to check out that property?
Since it was Sunday, I just said, well, I don't work on Sunday, but since I'm leaving early in the morning, I said, I'll just drive by, take a picture of the realtor sign, and then I'll, deal with it later, during the work week.
Okay. So when you drove by and you took a picture, how was it? How did you get connected with Chad?
We were out there Alex Cox led us out to the property. So we were just standing out in the field and just talking. And then Chad and some brother that he was serving within the church, they left I guess they were clerks or something, and they just left and came over to the property.
Okay.
And he said this guy was a realtor, and he said, I just want to, if you have any questions or anything, he can help you with it.
Okay, so who's he? Was that Chad with the realtor?
It was Chad with the realtor, but I don't remember the realtor's name.
Okay. And what was your response to Chad coming and showing up with the realtor at the property?
I just said, I don't do business on Sunday. I don't want to talk about it. I'm not here for that. And, because I didn't know they were coming. They just showed up.
Okay. So after that interaction, did you see Chad Daybell again?
No.
Okay. Did you ever see Chad that weekend at Lori's apartment?
Yes.
Okay. Tell us about that situation.
That's where he came. That's where he was coming over and teaching me some of their beliefs.
Okay. Did you ever see Chad with JJ that weekend?
No.
Okay. Did you ever hear about any interactions between Chad and JJ?
I heard that he had a scuffle with JJ, and that's how he got the scratch on his neck. But I don't remember what that was about.
Okay. And when you say he got a scratch on his neck, who got a scratch on their neck?
Chad did.
Okay. During the times you saw Chad, what was his interactions like with Lori Vallow?
They were really loving with one another and affectionate.
Okay. Now, at this time, were you aware that he was still married to Tammy Daybell?
Yes.
Okay. Did the fact that he was married come up at all?
Yes.
All right. How did that happen?
I asked him I just asked him how his marriage was with the Tammy and if she was a good wife, and he said he had no complaints, that she was a good wife, but he said her time was coming up, and that him and Lori were gonna, go do the things that they had committed to do for God.
Okay. So when you say her time was coming up, your Tammy's time
He
was...
said he had a dream that she was going to pass away before he was 50 or by the time he was 50.
Okay. And so that was Tammy was going to pass away before Chad was 50?
Yeah, by the time Chad was 50.
Okay.
The dream was I think he said 3 years previous.
Okay. And that, and then he said he and Lori were going to be together. What did that mean?
That they were going to get married and they were going to go do their calling.
Okay. And did you know what their calling was?
That's what I learned. They were going to gather the 144,000.
And they were going to do it together?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you have any response to this?
That's where I just said that because he felt he was kind of saying that I was one of them, and that's why he wanted me up there. And that's when I said, well, that would be a call from God and through his prophet.
And what was his reaction when you said it should come through the prophet? It's the prophet of the church, right?
Yeah. I can't remember all the details, but it was clear, kind of like that it was a separate calling, because it was the Church of the Firstborn, which is going to be coming out of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so that was his position, and he had his authority under John the Beloved, if I remember right.
Okay. And was that your belief?
No.
Okay. Now, did you do the podcast?
Yes.
Okay. And when did you do the podcast?
We did that on Sunday night.
Okay.
It was late.
All right. So that's Sunday the 22nd?
Yes.
All right. And so where did you do the podcast?
At Lori Vallow's kitchen over the island.
Okay. And when you said who's we did the podcast?
Melanie Gibb and Lori Vallow.
Okay. So you're in Lori's kitchen in her home, right?
Yes.
On a Sunday evening?
Yes.
Was JJ there?
No.
Where was JJ?
Alex was babysitting him.
Okay. And was he babysitting him in the apartment or somewhere else?
At his place, his apartment.
All right. Who told you that?
Lori.
Okay.
She just wanted to have uninterruptions so we could do the podcast, so she asked him to watch him.
Okay. And did you see JJ again that evening?
Yes, about 10:30, I believe it was 10:30 at night, I heard the front door open, which was to my back. I turned around and I saw Alex carrying JJ, and JJ was asleep and his head was on his shoulder.
And Alex carried him in the house?
Yes.
Did you see where Alex went?
He took him upstairs
Okay.
and put him in bed.
All right. Do you remember what JJ was wearing?
Seemed like it was shorts and a T-shirt, but I can't remember the colors. I almost want to say it was the camouflage shorts, if I remember right, but
Okay.
I just...
All right. So Alex, and did you see Alex leave that night?
Seemed like I heard the door open and close. I didn't turn around again. Once I knew what was going on, I just stayed focused on the podcast. But I didn't see him leave, but it seemed like I did hear the door open and close. It's the vague memory. That's
Fair enough. So where was JJ sleeping while you were staying there?
in Lori's room.
Okay. And what room were you in?
I was in JJ's room.
Okay. So did you spend that night there as well?
Yes.
All right. Did anything happen in the night?
Yeah, in the early hours of the morning, I had it was one of the worst nightmares of my life. It was very real.
Okay.
And
So let me ask you a question.
Okay.
So did Melanie come try to help you as you were waking up from that nightmare?
yes,
Okay. How did that happen? Let me do it this way. How did Melanie try to help you?
she had heard me talking in my sleep, kind of, I guess I was screaming out or calling out.
Okay.
And so she kind of helped wake me up.
Okay. And then what happened after she helped wake you up?
She said, I'm going to go get Lori, see if we can get Chad over here to give you a blessing.
Okay.
So she went, and she went to go get Lori, but she came back because she said she couldn't get anybody.
Okay. And so JJ was this in the middle of the night?
Yes, I would say it was in the early hours of the morning. I didn't have a clock there, but I know it was after midnight.
Okay. So as you were kind of waking up and coming back from the nightmare, did you see Lori Vallow at that time?
No,
Okay. Was Melanie able to get her to come help you guys?
no.
Okay. Now, the next morning, did you see JJ?
No. Excuse me.
Do you need some water?
Sorry.
No, it's all right. And so when you woke up the next morning, did you see JJ that morning?
I did not.
Okay. Did you make any inquiries about JJ?
Yes, I did. We went downstairs to say goodbye, and Lori was there, and she just said that JJ had an episode, and he climbed up on the cabinets, and then he climbed up on top of the fridge, and then he climbed up on top of the upper cabinets and knocked over her picture of Christ. And she just said that he was out of, she couldn't control him.
So what did she say she did?
She called Alex and had Alex come and get him.
Okay. So when she said she had Alex take JJ, what did you do?
Well, before she told me that Alex took JJ, I said, well, I'd like to see him because I wanted to make sure he was okay.
Why?
Well, because I didn't see any signs of the cabinets. There was no damage on the cabinets. There was no scuffs on the stainless steel fridge, and I just was trying to understand what was going on here. But I also, if JJ did have a problem, I'd like to give him a blessing.
Okay. And so then you asked her where he was.
Yeah.
And what did she say?
She said Alex. She had Alex come and get him.
Okay. One moment, if I may, Your Honor.
Yes.
It could.
Yeah, one moment. Just to make sure and I may have forgotten to ask, the date that Lori Vallow said she sent JJ with Alex was what?
That was Monday, the 23rd of September.
2019.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Nothing further.
All right, thank you, Ms. Smith. Who will be doing cross-examination? Mr. Archibald.
So, Mr. is it Warwick or Warwick?
Warwick.
Okay. How do you spell your last name?
Warwick.
Okay. I got it right. And you live in Pleasant Grove, Utah?
Yes, sir.
And your wife, Melanie Gibb, lives where?
Chandler, Arizona.
Okay. And you two married in December of 2021?
Yes, sir.
So in this weekend of September 2019 that you've talked to us about, were you still married to someone else?
No.
Was Melanie Gibb still married to someone else?
What's that?
Was Melanie Gibb still married to someone else?
No.
Okay. Both of you had been divorced by the time of September of 2019?
Yes.
When did you start to see Melanie before your divorce went through?
Objection relevance?
Overruled.
We were seeing each other at events.
Okay. So you were separated and then started to see Melanie?
Yeah, I was
again.
in the divorce process, and so I had a Downs boy that I was taking care of, and Melanie really hit it off with him at a camp, and so my divorce didn't final as fast as I had hoped it would, but she was divorced.
Mr. Warwick, also I'll ask you to please wait until he's completely finished his question before you answer, just because it helps our court reporter keep the record.
I'm sorry, I thought I was still on the same answer. I
You're fine.
apologize.
Thank you.
And what do you do for a living?
I'm a general contractor.
And have you also done podcasts on religious topics?
Yes.
And so that's how you and Melanie Gibb were interested in each other, because you had the same common interest in religious topics?
That would, yes.
And is that how you met Lori Vallow?
I met Lori through Melanie. I would say it was the same intent.
Okay. And that's how you met Chad Daybell as well?
Yes.
And that's how you met Alex Cox?
Yes.
And how would you describe Alex?
He was a fun-loving guy. He was very humorous, and he can be genuine and he can be lighthearted.
And that's how you also met Zulema about the same time in late 2018 or 2019?
I met Zulema at Lori's the first time.
And so that was August of 2019?
Yes.
Okay. And how did you learn that Lori and Alex moved from Arizona to Idaho?
Through Melanie.
And so this conference that you were going to in Rexburg, Idaho, was that, what kind of a conference did you say that was?
A Book of Mormon conference.
And who was that sponsored by?
Rod Meldrum.
So that wasn't part of your church, that was just a private conference?
Yeah, they were members of the church, and Rod was, it was his conference, and the people with Preparing a People were doing the filming for him.
And so Preparing a People, is that a group sponsored by your church?
No.
So who is it sponsored by? Just a bunch of people getting together?
They're just the private owners.
Okay. And when you say you get together to do podcasts, what does that mean?
When you sit down and discuss a topic or be interviewed.
And who's the designated audience for this podcast? Who are you trying to sell it to?
I'm just trying to think what their, it was mainly to the saint, for the Latter-day Saints.
And so have you ever made money on these podcasts?
No,
So the podcasts are for education then, not money?
right.
Mm-hmm.
And where would your podcast be downloaded to?
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance. I understand it's cross, but relevance.
All right, I'll allow some more here, Mr. Archibald, but it needs to tie into direct, if you could.
Well, you told the prosecutor you were doing podcasts with preparing a people. That's what you told the prosecutor.
Now, their interviews, I don't know if podcast is the right name. Melanie and Lori called theirs podcast. Preparing the people, I think they just called theirs, they just did weekly things where they would highlight topics. And then they would ask people to come in, and then they would just kind of go into that topic and, scripturally and experience with it.
And so your purpose in doing these podcasts was just to talk about your religious beliefs?
Yes, and to build faith. We did, most of the ones I did with preparing the people. Well, sorry, I'm saying too much.
No, it's not that you can't continue to answer. It was just avoid talking before Mr. Archibald's done, so we don't
Yeah,
have
but I just didn't know where to end it, so that's why I stopped. Sorry.
so we don't have two people talking at the same time for the court reporter, if you would. So
I
thank
thought,
you.
okay.
And is there a group called Preparing a People?
No,
What is Preparing a People?
they host conferences and they invite speakers to come in and vendors.
And have you been a speaker at some of these Preparing a People events?
Yes,
And the reason that you've been a speaker is because of what?
because of my conversion to the faith, and because of the doctrines that I came to understand
Okay. And
to build faith.
And so you've participated in these podcasts, or sometimes they're called firesides. Is that right?
Yes,
And you've given talks or speeches about the second coming of Jesus. Is that right?
about my dreams and visions.
So would you call yourself a visionary man?
Others have called me that. I don't call myself anything.
So on your speeches or your podcasts, have you shared your visions with other people?
Yes,
And you've had visions of secret combinations taking place in Washington, D.C.
Judge,
Yes.
I'm going to object at this point. I fail to see the continued relevance of this.
Goes to his credibility, Your Honor. The state brought this up, not me.
It is, I think it's
Judge,
appropriate.
I'm sorry, what?
Well, I haven't ruled yet.
I know, I apologize, Your Honor.
What was your comment? Go ahead.
I was just going to ask under Rule 16, comment 610 is that impugning somebody's religious beliefs or going beyond the scope of this trial is impermissible cross-examination.
Well, that door opened a long time ago in this case. I think with the context of the state's evidence, I will keep that rule in mind. I appreciate you bringing that up. At this point, I do think we're still within the scope of permissible cross-examination given the direct examination, so I'll overrule the objection.
You've given talks about visions of secret combinations in Washington, D.C. Is that correct?
yes,
You've given talks about visions of secret combinations in England and Saudi Arabia. Is that right?
yes,
You've given talks about evil entities in England, right?
no, I'm not sure where that one's going.
Okay. You've seen visions of Russia and China invading the United States.
Yes,
You've seen visions of Russia and China attacking the United States military and defeating us in 3 days.
Yes.
You've seen visions of the United States being sacrificed for a one-world government, right?
I don't know where that one came from.
You've been, well, I didn't make this up.
Yeah. Well, the context is what's being avoided. That's why it's difficult here. So,
Okay. So what's the concept about the United States being sacrificed for a one-world government?
Judge, objection, again, on that concept, I mean, relevance?
All right, at this point, Mr. Archibald, I do think we're getting away from the evidence of the case and direct, so if you could tie this in some way, if it does, if not, I'll sustain the objection.
You talked about having a vision while at Lori Vallow's home in September of 2019. You told that to the prosecutor, right?
Objection, misstates the evidence.
Overruled. If the witness can answer, you can correct if that's misstating evidence.
I had a nightmare.
So a nightmare and a vision are two different things.
Yeah.
So how do you define a nightmare versus a vision?
Well, it's like I was, whatever the nightmare was about, it was like I was living in it.
And a vision is just pretend?
No, a vision is when you're observing and you're being shown.
So both a vision and a nightmare are real?
No, not necessarily.
So can you further explain the difference between a vision and a nightmare, how one works and not the other one?
A vision is when you're being shown, when you're being shown things when you're seeing the future, but you're not seeing yourself. Somebody else is presenting it.
And so your visions come from who?
The ones I talked about came from angels, under God.
And your nightmare comes from who?
It was very adversarial. It was consumed. It was a lot of fear and a lot of darkness, and there was no order to it.
So the fear and darkness came from who?
Well, it was adversarial. I don't know who it came from, but.
And when you say adversarial, are you talking about the devil?
I would say it was from that direction.
An angel of the devil?
Could have been.
You've had these visions and nightmares throughout your time that you knew Chad Daybell, Lori Vallow, and Melanie Gibb. Is that right?
No, I just had that experience that night.
So on the night that you were in Rexburg, you wanted to get a blessing from Chad Daybell. Is that right?
Well, Melanie just said, I think you need to get a blessing. I'm going to go see if I can get Lori to get Chad. So
And
I was, I just agreed. I was distraught.
And what is a blessing?
It's when it's exercised under the direction of the priesthood to bless you with deliverance, comfort, or healing, or guidance.
So you wanted a blessing from Chad Daybell.
Well, Melanie just offered to get it. I was in a position where I wasn't all there. I was really struggling with whatever. I just remember it was horrified with what I was seeing.
And so what would a blessing from Chad Daybell do for you?
Give us just a moment.
What would a blessing from Chad Daybell do for you?
What have we done?
Yeah.
Well,
Objection, speculation.
Overruled.
I would have hoped for peace. but it wasn't my idea. Melanie was just trying to get help.
And you and
So
Melanie,
I just,
I'm sorry.
sorry.
You and Melanie were in the same room when this nightmare happened,
Yes,
and you were sleeping in JJ's room,
yes,
and you were woken up by your nightmare,
yes.
and then you woke up Melanie.
She woke me up because I was, she could tell that something was going on. So
And so you agreed,
maybe we woke each other up. I don't know.
and so you agreed to seek help from Chad Daybell.
Yes,
And did Chad Daybell come?
no,
When had you seen this scratch on Chad's neck from JJ?
he pointed it out, but it was pretty minor.
That you didn't see the scuffle, but Chad,
No, I didn't.
but Chad told you about it.
Yes,
And when Chad told you that his wife's time was up, that he had a dream she would die, did you believe that?
I wasn't certain to what to believe at that point.
He was teaching about the 144,000. Is that a concept you're familiar with?
Yes.
And tell us what you understand that to be.
All I understand is during the time of tribulation that God's going to have 144,000 that will cover the earth to gather his elect and to help gather his people and help deliver them from the trying circumstances.
And have you wanted to be part of the 144,000?
No, I mean, it would be an honor, but it's nothing I was seeking.
And I think you told the prosecutor that you didn't think Chad had the authority to gather.
No.
Who do you think has that authority?
The prophet of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
And who is that?
Well, now it's President Russell M. Nelson.
Okay. So that's where your disagreement with Chad Daybell was who had authority to do that.
Yes.
Had you ever heard of the Church of the Firstborn before?
I just see it in the scriptures, but
Yeah. Where in the scriptures?
Doctrine and Covenants.
And what's the Doctrine and Covenants?
It's a canonized scripture of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
So is the Church of the Firstborn is that in the Holy Bible?
It could be.
Is it in the New Testament or the Old Testament?
It could be. I'm not recalling all this right now.
Is the Church of the Firstborn mentioned in the Book of Mormon?
I don't know.
And who is John the Beloved?
A close disciple of Jesus Christ.
So John the Beloved was told something about the Church of the Firstborn. Is that what you learned from Chad? Or how did those two concepts go together?
I just heard that that's where he had gotten his authority from.
That's where Chad had gotten his authority from?
Yes.
And these are the kinds of things that you talk about on your podcasts.
No.
What do you talk about on your podcast?
On the podcast, they go into topics like fasting, and then a lot of them were the conversion of coming from where I came from, and the conversion stories, some experiences from the time I was converted up through my mission, serving in the LDS mission. And so, but they were in the context to build faith. They weren't in the context of seeking these things. They were as experiences as a result of repentance, and faith and service.
And so when you agreed to do a podcast with Chad and Lori and Melanie on Sunday night in Rexburg, Idaho, what was the topic of that podcast?
First off, it was just Melanie and Lori. Chad was not part of it.
Okay. And so what was the podcast with Melanie and Lori about?
It's about sanctification, and I'm trying to remember what the actual topic was.
What does sanctification mean?
Well, it's when as you repent and serve God, and as you prove faithful to Him, your heart, the Lord changes your heart, makes you clean, makes you whole, and endows you with greater faith.
And your audience for this podcast was, again, who?
It was preparing the people, and there was camps, the preparedness camps. Sometimes I went and spoke at those. So I just a lot of it was not really venues. It was more like camps and organized firesides, family reunions, and I would be invited to either speak or invited to do an interview and cover a topic.
And so being invited to speak at a preparedness camp, what topics would you talk about?
Judge, I'm going to object. I mean, I understand it's cross your honor, but at some point it becomes irrelevant.
I'll sustain the objection on relevance. I think we're beyond the scope of tying into the evidence of the case at this point, Mr. Archibald.
So your whole purpose was to get ready for the second coming of Christ in these podcasts?
No.
What was your purpose?
Whole purpose was to build faith and to help identify stumbling blocks to faith, and also to help identify the fruits of faith, and to help identify how involved our Father in heaven is with each one of us when we're truly trusting in His Son, Jesus Christ, and seeking His will.
Now, were you, when you left Lori's apartment on September 23rd, 2019, you indicate that you were anxious to go visit your son in Pocatello?
Yes,
And did Melanie go with you there?
she did.
And that's the time that you say you did not see JJ.
Yes.
And did you call the police?
No, I didn't. Did not.
All right. You didn't have any reason to, right?
I didn't see any reason. Lori was one of the most sweetest, kindest, fun-loving. She was I really enjoyed her. She was a wonderful woman. This stuff kind of hit me that weekend, and I just wasn't, anyway, I just didn't see it was like what they're teaching doesn't match what I see in their character. And so I kind of left a little confused and puzzled and trying to discern.
Well, their character was good, right?
Yeah, I saw goodness, yes.
And
I didn't see any reason to suspect.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, that'll conclude cross-examination. Any redirect by the state?
Yes, briefly, Your Honor. Defense counsel asked you about dreams and visions. I want to ask you about reality.
Okay.
The morning of, the evening of September 22nd, who carried JJ up to bed?
Alex.
Okay. And the morning of September 23rd, who told you where JJ was?
Lori Vallow.
And what did Lori Vallow say to you about what happened to JJ on the 23rd?
She said he was out of control and she couldn't control him, so she had Alex come and get him.
Okay. And when she said he was out of control, did she give you specific examples, real examples of what she said out of control meant?
That's when she said that he climbed the cabinets in the fridge and the upper cabinet and pushed over her picture of Christ that sat on the top of the upper cabinets.
And did you see any evidence with your own eyes that any damage had occurred that would be consistent with JJ climbing the cabinets?
No, I didn't see any scuffs on the fridge, and I didn't see any bent door hinges and the crown molding. That's the way it's fastened. It would have popped off if he would have gotten up there.
Okay. And so when she said that, what did she say she did with JJ?
She just called Alex and just said that you need to come and get him. I can't handle him.
Okay. And then she said she sent JJ with Alex.
Yeah.
Nothing further.
All right, thank you. That'll conclude then the testimony of this witness. Is there any objection to him being released from any subpoena?
The state would ask that he is.
No objection.
All right. Mr. Warwick, that concludes your testimony today. Then you can be escorted out of the courtroom by the bailiffs, and you are released from any subpoena that you're currently under. Thank you.